It's a great time of year when we get to actually talk about draft stuff. I'm Dan Bespris, and welcome to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Today we're looking at the top 30 Yahoo pre-ranks, continuing series of episodes. We did the top 10, the top 20, and then the top 30 in rapid fire. We'll probably continue to do it this way for another show or two. Then we'll expand, do more players per show, and just talk about each of them a little bit shorter. Because, look, once you get into honestly this range, but a little bit beyond this one, then you start to get to the point where the difference between player ranks is very small. Then it's time to start talking about what we do with how we feel about all of these players. Without further ado, I'm going to remind you guys all to hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube or listening after the fact on Apple or Spotify. Shows, by the way, are not airing at the same time on the different platforms. That's by design. We have a lot of stuff going on the YouTube page, so please subscribe. But that also changes kind of what order things are dropping in. If you have an opportunity to drop a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify, that would mean the world to me. And also remember to hit that like button on YouTube. We want that to happen a bunch right out of the chute. It helps. This is where we left off. I'm not going to go back through the first 20. You guys can watch the last couple of episodes if you guys want that. Players 21 through 30 today: De'Aaron Fox, LeBron James, Alperen Şengün, Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes. Scrolling. Steph Curry at 26, Pascal Siakam at 27, Donovan Mitchell 28, Ivica Zubac 29, and Chet Holmgren number 30. I want to go back a page so that we know where we left off. We will begin our episode with a look at De'Aaron Fox, who was traded mid-season last year to the San Antonio Spurs. He was significantly better during his time with the Kings than he was with the Spurs. And yes, the minutes were down by about 10%, but the production was down by more than that. And you can try to point and say, well, he ended up having to get the finger surgery and so on and so forth. It seemed like that was a thing, and I don't know that we have confirmation on this, that he was dealing with prior to the trade. But the big thing in San Antonio is that he's not the number one guy. Victor Wembanyama is the number one guy. He is the, I would think, sort of unfettered number two, but it's not the same as Sacramento, where he was clearly the number one. Domantas Sabonis was the number two. DeMar DeRozan was kind of the number three. I'm not talking about just straight usage. I'm talking about pecking order. And in San Antonio, he's not the number one. Could he get back to what he did in Sacramento? Yeah, why not? 19.6 shots per game. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility. And it's also worth noting that his shooting was worse. You could probably blame some of that on the finger. At the very least, he shot just 27% from downtown during his 17-game sample size with the Spurs. So yes, a lot of what we saw in San Antonio last year will be better. But will all of it be better? Will he get that extra 3 shots per game on a team that has Wemby as the top dog ahead of him, Devin Vassell, Steph Castle waiting in the wings behind him? I don't know that I can say that for certain. And so where for years, mind you, the free throw stuff has always been somewhat problematic for Fox, and he kind of got that sorted out over the last season, basically. This was sort of like the first year he was a good foul shooter. Is that going to stick? I don't know. I'll assume it will, but it might not. If the usage goes down, the value goes down with it. He had more assists in San Antonio than he did in Sacramento. It was more like the before Domantas Sabonis Kings level assisting. But that 16.5 shots per game number is one that does worry me substantially. It's also worth pointing out that for like a good chunk of those games, Wemby was out. This wasn't just he's got to coexist. And yeah, as the Spurs began to pull the plug, he probably wasn't doing quite as much. But I am a little bit worried about De'Aaron Fox this year. I don't think I want to draft him at 21. He profiles to me, and look, his overall rank last year was 41. That's a 4th rounder, and that was with 18.8 shots per game. That worries me. It does. He's not going to fall into the fourth round. I think you could probably take him, mid to late third and feel pretty good about it. But this is still late second round. That's too early for me. LeBron James, next man on the docket, and he just continues to do it. I don't know how. He's a cyborg. He'll be 41 during this upcoming season. Just an absolute tank. Craziest damn thing ever. I mean, look at this. YouTubers get to look at it. Look at the annual player log. It doesn't fit on a screen. I got to zoom out to fit all of his seasons on one page. This man has been in the NBA since 2003. He's just running away with basically all of the counting stats numbers. Look at these counting stats. It's crazy. 42,184. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but he really didn't look like he was slowing down last year. He still took 18 shots. Field goal percent was still 51. 3-point percent was still good. Free throw percent was actually his best ever, I think. Scrolling. Yeah. Single best free throw shooting season of LeBron's career. Steals and blocks are trending down. He doesn't have the elevation that he once had, but he's still a master of his body type and a master of just basketball. It's also true that some of his big defensive stats years came when he was kind of playing up a little bit more, and he was more small forward than ever not than ever, but in his Laker time, he was more small forward this past year than had been in recent memory because they played a lot of Rui Hachimura. And looking at the way the team is constructed right now, you figure Rui probably is in that starting five, but maybe they go small and they run a Marcus Smart, Austin Reeves backcourt, Luka point small forward, LeBron point power forward, 3 point guards, 3 different positions on the floor. That would probably be good for LeBron's overall value, but I'm not too worried about it either way. Here's the thing. My handicap of LeBron, and by the way, I don't think we've talked about this in a while. The Lakers' regular season win total is 48.5, and a lot of money, believe it or not, is coming in on the under. People are not, this is super weird, by the way, for the Lakers, because typically they get the premium team tax, and that doesn't seem to be the case this year. Or, I guess seem is the operative word. Maybe that is with the premium team tax. How many wins did they have last year? 50? I think the Lakers should be better. I mean, they lucked into 50 wins. They were not a very good team. Defensively, they were one of the worst defensive teams in the top of either conference. They weren't that great on offense either. They just sort of squeezed out wins because they have ultra elite basketball players. I do think they're better this year, and I think they'll get better as the season goes. Man, it's crazy to feel like 48.5 wins is not a super high number, but that's the number over at FanDuel right now. 48.5 wins at FanDuel Sportsbook, a proud partner of us here on Old Man Squad and the Believe Network. I would lean ever so slightly to the over, although that Western Conference is an absolute dogfight. Is this the year LeBron slows down? Okay, so back to LeBron, because I don't want to spend that much time on him, other than marveling at the fact that he's still doing it. After all these years. Still doing it. I'm done trying to figure out when LeBron is going to fall off. I did it one time and I was wrong. Forget what year it was. It was after the COVID year? No, there was one year where he looked like he was slipping just a little bit. Maybe it was 22-23 because he still scored 29 points, but the assists were down a little bit, and the steals and blocks were down a little bit, and the field goal percent was down a little bit. I was like, oh, maybe this is this first signs of aging. And then he just dialed back the usage and dialed up the efficiency. It's like, it's fine, man. I'm good. So I'm just done trying to be the smartest person in the room. I'm going to keep backing LeBron, and this is a perfectly fine spot for him, even though he's going to miss a dozen games. This is a perfectly reasonable spot. I'd rather get him about 5 slots deeper if possible, but I also know that with 4 key guys out for the season across fantasy, this is probably where you'd have to take LeBron. Next player on the board is Alpi, Mr. Şengün, out of Rocketstown, who, by all accounts, did about as much as they could ask of a man last year. And the Rockets brought in Kevin Durant, sent out Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks. And so the thought is, does that mean that there's more for Şengün than there was last year? I would say that playing alongside Durant, as opposed to Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks, can't really be a bad thing for kind of anyone on the roster. They didn't bring in other usage guys. Dorian Finney-Smith was the other Rockets, and Clint Capella, but key Rockets acquisitions. Those guys don't really shoot. So it's still the same other guys. Freddie VanVleet, Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith Jr., around KD and Şengün. That said, Şengün last year was number 90 in 9 category leagues, largely because he was a train wreck at the free throw line, 5.5 attempts per game, under 70%. But even if you were punting free throws, that still brought him up to about 40s on the I guess it would be 8 out of the 9 categories, not turnovers. In a punt build, he makes a lot of sense for particular builds. Şengün, however, is not a guy that I intend to draft at 23 in any scenario where I'm even remotely considering free throw percent. He falls into that category of, can you be competitive in free throws with Şengün on your team? Yeah. You need one hyper elite free throw guy to cancel him out. But here's the thing. I don't like that way of thinking. If you have a hyper elite free throw player on your team, that should be a category you then try to win. And taking a guy like Şengün punches a fat hole in it. He does a lot of stuff well. Field goal percent is fine, but scoring, rebound, assists, steals, those are all pretty decent for Şengün. It's not that his fantasy game isn't good. It's that there is that one glaring weakness. And so if you're drafting him and you're trying to compete in free throw, you're just doing it the hard way. You're just setting the difficulty up a notch. You can do it, but my goal, as always with this podcast and just fantasy in general, is to try to simplify it. Make it so that you guys can spend a 10th of the time that I spend on stuff and still be very, very good. 98th percentile. If I'm 99th, that's, you can slip a piece of paper in between us. That's about it. But that's my goal, is to give you all of the information so you don't have to do it. Just do it the easy way, guys. Do it the easy way. Drafting Şengün on a non-punt team is the hard way. Drafting Şengün on a punt team is fine. I still don't think he's a terrific late second rounder, but, he'll be okay. Not my cup of tea here, where the guy right behind him, and let's move to him now because I don't have much more to say on Şengün. You guys kind of get where I'm at with him. Evan Mobley, I would far prefer to have at this spot in a draft over Alperen Şengün. And look, a lot of their stats aren't that different. Scoring, pretty damn close. Mobley, 18.5 points. Şengün, what was he, 19? What did I just say he was? 19.1. Rebounds, 1 separating the two of them. Şengün is going to win assists because they run a lot of stuff through him in the high post. So he won assists by about 1.5. Evan Mobley, though, dominated defensive stats. 2.5 defensive stats for Mobley. And despite not being a great free throw shooter himself, he was significantly better there, took fewer free throws, and made them at a higher clip. Still a sort of negative against the average type of deal, but there's a reason that Evan Mobley was number 23 last year and Alperen Şengün was number 90. And it wasn't just foul shooting. Having a big jump in blocks is relevant. Having a big impact in field goal percent is relevant. And just being, not a guy where you have to kick something to the side. I mean, you could still punt free throws if you wanted to with Mobley, but you definitely don't have to. By the way, it makes him a first rounder if you did, but he's good enough. He's a second rounder even if you don't. So this is a perfectly fine spot to take Evan Mobley at 24, late second round. I said on a Cavs show earlier this week, I think, or late last week, who can keep track of the time, that if they play more competitive ball games, you might see Mobley's minutes go from 30 and a half to 32, and that's more rebounds, more steals, more blocks. I don't know that the efficiency could possibly be any better than last year, but there's actually room for him to maybe even be a little bit better. The better is more of a personal thing as opposed to a team thing. But I like Evan Mobley a lot. I would love to see him play mid-70s in games instead of low 70s. He did it once. His second year in the NBA, he managed mid-70s. I think the Cavs will still be good. I don't think they're going to be as good as last year. Maybe that means that they give one less rest day down the stretch also. So there's a lot of little reasons to think that Mobley could be even a tiny bit better. And he also has a very safe floor where, again, with Şengün, because of the big negative, detrimental categories, his floor is lower. Seeing Scotty Barnes at 25 was a surprise to me. Not because I think it's an absolutely terrible spot. I thought that there would be a larger sour flavor tax with Scotty Barnes, who, oddly, has a relatively similar fantasy game to both of the guys we just talked about, as kind of like closer to Şengün than Mobley, kind of a passing big-ish man with good defensive stats. The big difference between Barnes and Şengün is that Alpi's going to win the field goal percent battle, and Scotty is likely to win the free throw. I would think 3-pointers, but I guess it's not set in stone. Free throws, 3-pointers, probably the assists battle tips to Barnes as well. Scotty was number 63 last year in an injury-plagued season where he shot the ball very poorly, and we'll pull it up on the screen here for YouTubers to see. His career arc in shooting has been kind of all over the map. 49% his rookie year, then down to 45.5, 47.5 last season, 44.5 this year. Actually took fewer 3-pointers, percentage-wise, but shot awful percentages from downtown. He's at 27% from 3. So just nothing went in for Scotty this last year. Blame it on injury, blame it on kind of a partial tanking season, whatever. We know he's going to be better than last year. He's a good steals guy. His blocks came back down, which I think we kind of assumed would happen after that crazy spike. Rebounds, assists are all going to be good. Like, counting stats are going to be great. We need the percentages to be better. 25 feels early. Is it? I don't know. He was number 21 the year before when he was a 47.5, 78 splits guy, and the blocks are at 1.5 instead of 1. But let's say that the percentages get back to that. The blocks don't. That puts him firmly in the third round, kind of like a late third. So taking him at 25, early third, not a huge deal there. Like, I mean, the guys around him is part of what makes this questionable, because there are 2, 3, 4, 5-ish guys behind Scotty Barnes that I think are safer with upside. There are going to be guys that are behind him that are safer maybe without upside, but there are still a few guys that I think can kind of do both before I get to Scotty Barnes in my brain. I would probably... So here's the other thing. Like, there were guys that we talked about ahead of Scotty that I would take behind him, even if I'm not that high on Barnes to begin with. I just am lower on some of these other dudes. So this is probably where he's going to end up, even if you're not a big Scotty Barnes fan, and you probably just put him on the list of guys that's like, like he's probably not going to fall far enough to where I'd want to take him. That's the honest to goodness truth. Who the hell did we talk about on this show already? De'Aaron Fox. Actually, De'Aaron Fox and Scotty Barnes are kind of in a similar boat for me, where I'd much prefer to take them like late third, early fourth. And I don't think there's almost any chance they get to that marker. This one blew me away. Steph Curry at 26, and this has to be an age tax. He's old. He's not LeBron old, but he's 37. But at the same time, Steph was as good as he's ever been down the stretch last year. He was awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome for the Warriors the second half of last season. Final 25 games, Steph Curry was number 4 in all of fantasy basketball. 27 points, 4 boards, 6 assists, 1.3 steals, 4.5 threes on 47-94 splits. He was amazing. And frankly, for the year, he was pretty freaking good. He was number 9 for the season. So it's not like he was bad going into that heater that he put together down the stretch. He was still good. He was like early second round. I could budget in a Steph drop-off of some small amount. Like, if you think that there's a little bit of an age tipping here for Steph, you could look at the prior year when he was number 23. A lot of that was because he didn't get a steal the entire year. No defensive stats whatsoever. And give him back some defensive stats and he jumps up the board a pretty good amount. But even if that was where you put him, it still feels like this, where he's being drafted, is almost a worst case scenario, which is the greatest thing to find on a draft board. It brings us back to that graphic in the sky we've talked about, where you look at the ADP, make a horizontal bar in your mind of pre-rank ADP or whatever, and then superimpose on top of that where the player could end up on a per game basis. And with Steph, it's almost like his draft slot is very close to a worst case per game scenario. Yeah, he's old. He is. He's going to miss. I guess he played 74 games the year before this last one, but he's going to miss 10 games. And you hope it's not too much more than that. But we're talking about a guy who has mid-first round upside that you could potentially get in the mid-20s, in the third round, without any obvious injury stuff right now. I am all in on Steph Curry at 26. Easily my favorite player on the board that we've talked about in 3 shows so far. Pascal Siakam, next name to talk about. I'm super worried about the Pacers. And we just did a Pacers show. Has that aired yet? Actually, that might not have aired yet. I think that's coming out. I think that's dropping at sort of like a low tide time over the weekend. So you'll hear me talk about Siakam again in that one. He's been for years a pillar of consistency. He's drafted near 50. He finishes between 40 and 60, and he's durable, and that's great. But the Pacers are in a throwaway year. They lost Miles Turner to free agency and didn't replace him with anybody of note in the middle. They're going to try to piece it together with Jay Huff and Isaiah Jackson. Tyrese Halliburton is out for the entire year. This team is not going to be anywhere close to as good as they were last season. If they're fighting for a play-in spot, maybe you get Siakam playing down the stretch. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Pacers went to the key guys on the team. The front office was just like, look, guys, we've got our core intact here. We've got Siakam, you're signed for a couple more years after this one. Halliburton for a couple more, 3 more after. Nembhard, he's still got 3. Who else is a core guy? I guess Benedict Mathurin is sort of close to the end of his extension. But yeah, I mean, the key dudes are signed beyond this year. So, it's not like a bunch of guys feel like they need to make an intense run together. Siakam, Halliburton, Nembhard, Toppin, Nesmith, McConnell, Mathurin, Isaiah Jackson, Jarris Walker, Ben Shepherd. All of these guys are signed the year after this one. So what is the impetus to push this team super duper hard? Maybe they do. I'm not saying they won't, because that would be honestly a little bit foolish for me to act like I knew. But it does feel like there's plenty of reasons not to. What if Siakam gets more usage with Halliburton out, which it feels like he almost has to? You could see more scoring, more assists. That's good. That drives him from the top 50 up to, hell, maybe he does have a per game rank in the 20s this year. I don't think so. I think 30s is probably where he ends up with the extra usage, but he might get into the 20s. I'm definitely not writing that off. I just think you're playing with fire on a team that might pull the plug on their guys if the season turns out to be a little bit of a lost cause. So be very, very careful here with Siakam, even though per game wise, it's probably fine. And he's probably going to play in most Pacers games before they decide whether or not this season matters. So maybe Siakam becomes a guy that I would trust more in Roto, because then if you just lose him after February, that's fine. You got a pretty good chunk out of him first. Your team will survive. Head-to-head, if you don't get him for your playoffs, you're in a real tough spot. And if they start to pre-tank and rest guys in the middle of the season, it's going to drive you nuts on the head-to-head side as well. So be careful. I'm a little worried. Maybe I'm too worried, but after the amount of tanking we saw this last season, I'm choosing to be a little bit more cautious than I have in years past. Donovan Mitchell is a player we just talked about recently as well. When did that Cavs show air on the various old man squad feeds? The 19th? Was that Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday. So we dropped a Cavs show back on Tuesday, and a lot of it focused on Donovan Mitchell, which was the question of, is he ready for a bounce back? Because Donovan Mitchell was number 35 in 9-Cat this last year. After his first couple seasons in Cleveland, he was basically a first rounder. And the big difference for Donovan, as we scroll down for all to see, is that the steals went down by half a steal per game. So he basically dropped 30 to 40 steals over the course of the season. Assists went down by 1. Scoring went down by 2.5. Field goal and free throw went down. So the question you must be asking yourselves is, Dan, what didn't go down for Donovan Mitchell? The answer is he made the same number of three-pointers per game this year as last season. This past season as the previous one. Darius Garland is likely to miss the beginning of this year, so that's a good thing for Donovan Mitchell. But I think more than the Garland impact, because Garland was there his first season in Cleveland, and Mitchell was great. More than Garland, I think the issue was that the Cavs were beating teams too helplessly into submission. They were clubbing opponents, and so Donovan Mitchell's minutes were the lowest of his entire NBA career by a lot. He had never played fewer than 33 and roughly a half minutes prior to this season. He played 31 and a half because the Cavs, like the Thunder, similar issues, just blew everybody out. And in the process, a lot of guys racked up a bunch of stats very quickly. Evan Mobley was probably the best example of someone who benefited from the incredibly efficient offense. Donovan Mitchell was not that efficient in the offense, but they didn't even need him to be. I think there's a chance that a lot of stuff gets better for Donovan Mitchell this year. I think the minutes trend up because I don't think the Cavs are going to have the same oomph during the regular season after having a great regular year and then not the world's greatest playoffs. Injuries certainly hurt them there, but teams sort of do that big regular season once and then they're like, okay, we got to pace ourselves a little bit better. So more competitive games means more minutes. Also, random fluctuations probably work in his favor. I don't know that field goal percent is coming back because he had sort of 2 up years with the Cavs before this one, which was more like his career number, but free throws were down. This was his worst foul shooting year since his second season in the NBA. More minutes means more rebounds, more assists, more steals, more blocks, more everything. I expect Donovan Mitchell to move back towards the second round this season, and I think this is a great spot to be able to get him in the late 20s. Like, if you get Donovan Mitchell in the third round, absolutely go for it. Make it so. At 28, yeah. Ivica Zubac at 29 is the next name on the list, and I liked this one a lot more before the Clippers signed Brook Lopez, because Zubac was brilliant last year. He was a big hit for us on draft night. He finished at number 30, which is basically where they've put him on the pre-rank. And he played 80 out of 82 games, which made him, you guessed it, a first rounder by totals last year. If he shows that same durability, which honestly, guys, he's always been pretty damn durable, although seeing him do it on the big chunk of minutes this year was extra cool. He did miss 14 games the prior year, but 6, 6, and none during the COVID years, by the way, he played all 72 games. He plays, which is great, but now the Clippers have a backup, which means he doesn't need to play 33 minutes a game in the backup 15. It can be more like 28, 29 for Zoo, 20-ish Brook Lopez kind of thing. So expect a lot of his stuff to take a hit. He's still going to be great. I think the free throw percent could be better, but I would expect the rebounds to come down probably closer to 10, 11 range instead of 12 and a half. I would expect the scoring to come down from 17 to more like 14 or something in that range. And all of that, when you add it all together, is going to taper him off. He probably profiles as someone who beats this pre-rank by totals, but likely loses to it on averages. Why would you take Zubats there if that's my handicap of him? Honestly, I don't know that there's a great reason for it, because I do think there are still guys on the board that have the potential to beat their pre-rank by both total. Okay, no, excuse me. Let me rephrase. There are players still on the board that could beat Zubats pre-rank by both totals and per game, including the guy right behind him, the guy 3 behind him, the guy 4 behind him, the guy 6 behind him, the guy 9 behind him. It doesn't matter. You'll see those on a future show. Except for this first one, who I think is a guy I would rather have at this juncture, and that's Chet Holmgren, who's in a delightful post-hype year. I'm trying to make it 3 consecutive seasons that we've nailed our Chet Holmgren handicap. 2 years ago, he was the only rookie I've ever put on the Dan Besbris Old Man Squad list, and he crushed it. This past season, I said nay. There was an expectation he was going to improve over the prior year, and I was like, no way, this team just brought in Isaiah Hartenstein. And I mean, we got that one like kind of right. The injury messed things up for Chet quite a lot. It looked like he was probably going to be, a late second, early third before that. And that's what I'm expecting this year, because we had a deeply stat-wise, I don't know about his emotional well-being, but a stat-wise artificial depression, where his minutes went down by 2, but a good reason for that, 2 good reasons for that. Actually, neither one of them is a good reason, but they're both reasons. Injury. Whoa! Smacked my microphone. Injury is one. Blowout wins is the other. It kind of sucks when you're a guy who's already on an injury leash and the team doesn't need you to come back and finish out a ball game. So there are all these contests here, and we'll look at the Chet Holmgren game log from this past season, where, look, he opened the year prior to his injury, which was on November 10th, played 36, 29, 33, 28, 18. I have to dig into that one and figure out what happened. I think foul trouble and then a blowout win. 29, 22, another blowout win. 36, 29, injury. And then 22, 25, 30, 28, 27, 32. I guess that's 28. 15, 30, 26. You're noticing a pattern. And then as you get towards the very end of the year, all of a sudden now it's 34, 35, blowout win, 23, blowout win, 28. Too many damn blowouts. Stop it, OKC. Competitive ball games, he was in the 30s. So I think we're looking at a brilliant confluence of events on Chet Holmgren, where everything about his game last year was pushed down by factors not directly under his control. His minutes were down for 2 reasons that he didn't really have anything to do with, and it covered up the fact that everything else for Chet was kind of fine. Percentages were down. I would blame some of that on injury and just not really having his legs underneath him. So I would expect both field goal and free throw to probably be a little bit better this coming year. But remember, field goal percent might not come back. He's playing more power forward now alongside Hartenstein. He'll play plenty of center minutes. but even a few power forward minutes mean you're not quite as close to the rim as before. But the shot blocking was still great. Steals were still good. Rebounds were still the same. Free throw was down a little bit. We'll see where that levels off, probably somewhere in between. But this is a guy who's prime to jump back close, at least, to where he was the year before. He might even play more minutes than that, but I would assume he can get back to where he was his rookie season, which was a mid to late second rounder per game. He was also very durable that year, had the weird hip thing this past season. I think Chet Holmgren is a guy who can beat his ADP of 30 or his pre-rank of 30 in per game, and with some durability, anything like his rookie year, he could toast it by totals as well. His totals rank rookie season was number 9. I'm all about Chet Holmgren. I think he's a great mid-third round pick. I hope he's there. There are a bunch of guys that are chunked in this area that I'm pretty excited about, and we'll go back and share the list again so you guys can see who's coming up. I already told you I like Steph. I told you I like Donovan Mitchell there. Yeah, those guys are older dudes. Chet is not an older dude, at least. But look in the next chunk here. You got Kevin Durant at 32, Trey Murphy, Amen Thompson. Obviously, Kawhi is a thing. Adebayo has so much health consistency. Josh Giddey, Jamal Murray. These are some really interesting names that we're going to cover, not today, in our next one. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Dan Vespers for the Old Man Squad. Subscribe. I love you all, you jerks. Subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Dan Vespers, DanBesbris. Hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube on the way out. Again, that does really matter. The more likes you get quickly, the more the show drops into everybody's feed. It's growth time of year again, so I need your help on that. Shout out once more to our friends at FanDuel. We were talking about the Lakers' regular season win total of 48.5. People don't think they're going to get there. I might, in a rare twist, actually be a Lakers optimist on today's show. Check out FanDuel Sportsbook if you want to get down on that Lakers bet. In fact, you can get the over at basically even money right now. Again, that's our pals at FanDuel. Enjoy the rest of your day. I don't know when these shows are airing right now. I'm the producer, and I still don't know because there's so much content happening. My own show, Noah's show, Kingy's show are all dropping on the YouTube channel right now, and I'm just trying to space them apart. So I'll see you when I see you. I'm Dan, and I'm out.